Inflation is rising and so is the cost of food and fuel, straining personal budgets to breaking point. And it's made worse by the fact that the cheapest mode of public transport is largely unavailable. That's because it's been hampered by vandalism, corruption, bad management. It's become a priority to get our passenger rail service going again. Today, government renewed its commitment to doing just that. And I'm joined now by the Deputy Director General of Rail Transport, Ngwako Makhayipeea. Mr. Makhayipeea, thank you so much for your time. So, talk to me about the plan. What I've picked up, and you'll let me know if this is the main concept. Certainly for passenger rail transport, it's about devolving it to local level so that municipalities take charge, but also bringing in the private sector to assist with running the trains. Is that right?
Good evening, Sally, and good evening to the News viewers. As government, we have launched this national rail policy, which has been approved by government. And with us, what we are doing, we are starting a series of stakeholder engagement in terms of taking and reviving the rail sector moving forward. You have actually said that the fuel prices has gone high, and this is one of the key modes of transport that will be able to assist South Africans from moving from one place to other. With regard to the key policy thrusts that were put forward, yes, you are right. We are putting some key institutional reforms in terms of the policy, one being introducing concession in terms of passenger rail. How do we intend to do that is that in areas where government cannot be able to offer services and where private sector has approached us, we are giving them space to be able to run on our rail network. Devolution in one or another doesn't really say you need to take rail services away from PRASA, but it then says at a high level, how do you then make sure that in an integrated fashion, you therefore working with PRASA as a key strategic SOE, which will continuously hold government infrastructure and government, how to work with municipalities on service standards and any other levels to ensure that rail transport assists to move people within your greater metros.
Look, it sounds like a good idea, and we've got to do something. It's absolutely critical. But talk to me about the arrangements, perhaps by giving me an example. I want to understand the role that PRASA will play. We know that PRASA has been hollowed out by corruption in some areas, mismanagement in others. It's certainly not been easy, what PRASA has been trying to fix. But there might be some hesitancy on the part of potential private investors to work with PRASA. How much say do they have? Are they key? Are they equal partners?
PRASA worked directly with the Department of Transport, and they were part of the policy process, and they are really aligned with us. And it was very clear in the stakeholder engagement that we have had today, unpacking the policy instruments. There will be instances, just to give an example, where PRASA will allow private sector to run on their rail network, which they therefore own. In that way, we'll be using another element wherein we unlock the funding element, because that access fee that the private sector will pay through concessions, which are long-term concessions, will assist as a funding instrument, and the funding, the payment that they'll be paying in terms of access charge will go back toward investment in terms of rail infrastructure. It is key that we work with the private sector in dealing with this, and PRASA is really a winning partner in this regard. They've invested and they'll continue to own this infrastructure on behalf of government, and there'll be an authority to be able to deal with those particular issues. We have gone a long way. We know the challenges that were faced through security, which is caused by COVID-19, and the infrastructure is really being attacked. But we believe that working with private sector will be partners moving forward. And we are therefore saying, as government, working with the metros, will be engaging them under the leadership of SALGA. We are going to develop a development strategy. We'll really talk to the dynamics and the implications of how we then implement that policy framework moving forward.
We had our reporter out at the Central Line in Cape Town a little earlier in the show, and he took us around the train station. It was completely derelict, broken up in parts, and we know that some areas of that line are starting to work again. But just talk me through Cape Town as an example. How exactly is it going to work? Who's going to do what? Who's going to pay for fixing the lines? Who's going to pay for the security? Just give me a practical example of how this is going to work.
One, starting with security, that security is a concern that government at a high level we are concerned about, and working together with the JCPS cluster, which is the security cluster, we are looking at ways of how do we then working together with the police, with the intelligence to deal with the security, because it is, we agree, it is a deterrent towards investment. Cape Town rail infrastructure in terms of the other lines is working very well. We know Central Line, it is one of our challenges, and that's where we have a serious vandalism and people who are really sighting on our rail infrastructure. We are working closely with all the role players. As government, we have signed what we call an implementation protocol, so that all government role players, starting from the city, Department of Human Settlement, Department of Public Works, Department of Transport, how do we then work together to ensure that Central Line comes back to life and we're able to work together so that every one of us can be able to play their role and their space in that particular element. It is key, and government, in terms of fixing the rail infrastructure, there is budget allocated to PRASA in terms of one, fixing the low rail asset and bring the trains on board. And we'll work with the city in terms of service standard to be able to implement that.
So you certainly have a new plan and you're bringing in new role players. Are you able to give me an indication of how much interest there has been from the private sector? And can you commit to any time frames? Because this is so urgent. People need it yesterday, don't they?
I can say to the South Africans that as the Department of Transport, under the leadership of Minister Mbalula, we are hard at work in terms of fixing and reviving the railway sector. We had engagement today specifically focused to the private sector, and there was a good turnaround. And with regard to the policy implementation itself, in terms of how we move forward, the private sector today has pledged an amount of commitment of almost 18.5 billion, working with us, investing in terms of train wagons in itself, and secondly, the locomotives to be able to haul and come and make intervention. The policy itself, we are getting into the implementation mode, and we are working with the partners. And what we have given ourselves, the policy has been sectored in terms of 3 levels, which one, short interventions, which is the time horizon of 2024, and then with the long, medium-term horizon of 2020, 2030, and ultimately 2050 being our key milestone to be able to look at these reforms. And we will be convening one, labor and local government, taking them towards the devolution strategy, because it is not just an easy way, because funding of those assets, and we therefore agree that there have been mushrooming settlement that is the railway sector in how we plan it within the integrated rail transport system. We need to make sure that is done. So those are our time frames. And as government, like I said, we're hard at work. We are keen. We'll be able to deliver and make the difference and bring back the commuters in the rail sector. We have done it, Sally. We have continuously recovered corridors. We have started with Maupani corridors, which is a presidential priority. And we have seen commuters coming back and using rail as a mode of transport. And we have put security plans in place. It is costly, but we'll be engaging the security cluster, including the Ministry of Police, working clubs to ensure that really works for the benefit of the South Africans.
Well, we'll let you get back to it. It does sound encouraging, and good luck to all the role players and to you as well. Let's hope we can get our trains moving again. Much appreciated. That was the Deputy Director General of Rail Transport, Ngwako Makhayipeea.